What is Hungryroot? I never heard of them.
Hungryroot is an online grocery delivery and meal planning service. So if you think back to like the Blue Apron and other kinds of meal kits that were popular around a decade ago, this is kind of an updated version of that. So it's not quite a meal kit. But it's an online service where you put in kind of all your dietary preferences, your health goals, what you like and don't like, and then Hungryroot comes up with a weekly menu for you, weekly recipes, and then they will also ship you the groceries. So it's kind of meal planning and grocery delivery all rolled into one.
So, am I living under a box here? Like, I mean, I have never heard of Hungryroot, and maybe you've used it because I know you're a loyal Instacart customer from what I remember. Have you used it?
I've tried it out before, and yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely a different experience than something like an Instacart, and it's interesting the way that they've structured the business very differently than an Instacart, where Instacart is kind of more for that like immediate. I ran out of milk or I ran out of eggs and I need it in a couple of hours. Hungry Roots pitch is that it's more replacing a meal prep session on Sunday or when you're sitting down to kind of plan out what your meals for the week are going to look
Okay,
like.
so closer to a Blue Apron kind of model then.
Right, and their pitch is that all of the user data that they have and their recommendation systems makes that whole process very easy to personalize it to exactly what you like.
So, how is the company doing financially? How big is the business even?
It's, to your point that you had never heard of it before, it's pretty large, for a company that is maybe isn't on as many people's radars. They just reported, that their 2025 revenue was $700 million, which is 55% growth from the year before, so it's a pretty decently sized business. And I spoke to their CEO, and he said that this brand awareness is one of their big goals for this year. So trying to get more customers and more shoppers to hear about them for the first time, to understand, how it could work for them, and also, yeah, kind of overcome this preconception that people might have that it's just another meal kit. Kind of explaining how and why they're different.
And so, what did he say about the company's IPO plans, or what does your reporting tell us?
I reported that they're eyeing a potential IPO that could come as soon as this year, but they're not. There's no formal timeline or process yet. But I do think that they're a great example of kind of how the consumer narrative has changed, even just over the past couple of weeks. For the past couple of years, I've reported a lot about how consumer has just been this sector that's been kind of left for dead, both by VCs and investors in the private market, as well as investors in the public market as well. And there just hasn't really been a lot of appetite for consumer IPOs. It's really since 2020. 2020 and 2021 was the last kind of big consumer IPO wave that we saw with companies like Allbirds, Warby Parker, Rent the Runway, and part of the reason why we haven't seen consumer IPOs for the past couple of years is because by and large, all of those companies, most of those companies from the last kind of vintage haven't really performed very well. They really indexed on growing as quickly as possible and not on becoming profitable. And so when you're reporting to Wall Street quarter after quarter that you're not making any money, that's a pretty hard narrative to sell. So I think Hungryroot and some of these other companies that have been coming up more recently and getting to an IPO ready stage, they're fundamentally just much more high quality businesses than some of the companies that we saw the last time around.
Well, and this was a point that Brian Sugar, who we had on the show with you for a previous story that you did, I mean, he made this point that consumer companies traditionally haven't had great unit economics. That's been the reason
Right.
for their downfall. It seems like this newer crop of consumer companies, at least some of them have learned their lesson, and so the crop of consumer companies coming to market are actually better businesses. Who are the other consumer names that you're watching for IPOs here?
Yeah, well, I mean, you just saw Once Upon a Farm, which is a kids snack brand. The actress Jennifer Garner was actually a co-founder of the brand, but that's a like healthy snack brand. They just went public a couple of weeks ago, and the shares have performed really well since then. So I think a lot of people are interpreting that as a good sign. There's a juice brand, Suja Life, that said they filed confidentially in the fall. So I think a lot of people are expecting them to potentially uh, go out soon, as well as Jersey Mike's, which is a sandwich chain.
Good old Jersey Mike's.
Yes, Blackstone acquired them last year, and it's interesting that they reportedly are already eyeing an IPO. I think just in contrast to a lot of the software investments that private equity firms have made over the past couple of years, they've been trying to get those off their books, and they really can't. So I think that really kind of illustrates just kind of the divide between consumer and some of these other tech and software companies that are really having to contend more with these questions about what risk does AI pose.
Great. Well, Ann, I want to thank you for coming on. That is Ann Gehan, our e-commerce reporter here at The Information.